PDP-Laban Senatorial aspirant Atty. Raul Lambino has positioned himself as one of the staunch legal defenders of former President Rodrigo Duterte amid the latter's arrest last Tuesday. Advocating for due process, he is also spearheading legal efforts to challenge FPRRD's detention, branding it as political persecution. His advocacy appears to be gaining traction from Duterte supporters, who view the arrest as an attack on Philippine sovereignty. Will the fight for due process of Duterte allies also translate to favorable results in the May elections? With us this morning at the BNC studio is the senatorial aspirant of PDP-Laban, Atty. Raul Lambino. Good morning, Atty. Raul.
Good morning, Atty. Karen, and good morning to the millions of viewers of your program.
I hope millions talaga. But Atty. Raul, how did you become close to former President Duterte?
Well, before the elections in 2016, if I remember right, about 16 months before May 2016, former President Fidel Ramos and a few retired officers of the armed forces went to Davao to talk to Mayor Digong at the time and persuade him to consider running for the presidency. And then I was asked to help in the campaign for PRRD. So we formed this group, we call it the Champs of Rodi Duterte, headed by former Executive Secretary Bingbong Mijaldea and former National Security Advisor Jun Esperon, who was very close to the then President Fidel Ramos. So we went out our way and tried to tell PRRD that you have the support of ordinary people, and we were very thankful that he considered running in the 2016 election. Then after that, PRRD appointed me as his presidential advisor for Northern Luzon with a cabinet rank and another position that is as chairman and CEO of the Cagayan Economic Zone Authority. So I left my private law practice and I joined government. After so many years of convincing, I did not join government under President Fidel Ramos. I remained to be a practicing lawyer. So too, during the time of former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, I did not join her government. I remained as her lawyer and consultant, but not as one working in government. But it was only President Duterte, when I consulted former President Arroyo, that I got this offer from PRRD, and then President Arroyo said, well, you refused me before. Please don't refuse the president now. So I accepted the job and the challenge, and I was very thankful. I am not regretting anything that I have served the government under PRRD.
So it sounds like you believed in former President Duterte way before he started going up in the ratings, because I remember when he decided to run, in the surveys, he was, I think, 4%.
Yes, Atty. Karen.
So isa ka dun sa mga nauna na naniwala na sa kanya.
As early as almost 2 years before the election, because I remember right, it was September 2014 when I joined this group called CORD, the Champs of Rodi Duterte.
What is it about former President Duterte that made you believe in him? Na una, mag-presidente siya. Pangalawa, like you were offered to be in government during the time of President Ramos, President Arroyo, but it was under President Duterte that you agreed to serve in government.
I am very passionate of constitutional reform. You know that. Your mother and I have been championing the move to change the 1987 Constitution, and we need to have real reform in government, both structural and both systemic. And we see in PRRD the person who could possibly change the system of government that we have, which is a centralized, over-centralized unitary form of government, into a federal, decentralized system of government. And if possible, we are going to have a parliamentary system. And considering that PDP-Laban, the party of which PRRD belongs to, and me too, is championing federalism. So that is the primary motivation why I had supported PRRD, to help transform the country into a more accountable, transparent governance through a federalism and parliamentary system of government.
So let's go now to where we are right now with former President Duterte being arrested, supposedly because of the ICC. Why are you questioning the validity of that arrest?
Well, first and foremost, our position is very clear. And as a lawyer, that is also my personal position, that ICC has no jurisdiction anymore to any Filipino citizen or to any resident in the Philippines, whether he is a Filipino or not, but he is in the Philippines, that ICC doesn't have any jurisdiction over any person who is in the Philippines since 2019, when the Philippine government opted to get out of the International Criminal Court. You see, there are more than 60 countries all over the world who are not members of the ICC, including the United States, Russia, China, Israel, and Indonesia, Pakistan. These are very big countries, powerful countries, and they say that it is really a surrender of sovereignty, diminution of the right of a state to be a sovereign nation if you will be under the ICC. And given that we have already get out of the ICC, whatever investigations that were conducted prior to the 2019 year that we get out of the ICC should be considered no longer valid. We studied that in law, Attorney Karen. Now, we have this principle of ex post facto law. Cannot apply ex post facto law unless it is favorable to the accused. You see? So that law, the act of the Philippine government in getting out of the ICC should be given a retroactive effect because that will favor all possible accused or of accused that are being investigated. Now, secondly, even assuming that ICC may still have jurisdiction over those alleged crimes committed from 2011 when the ICC Rome Statute was ratified by the Senate, and 2019, we have an existing judicial system. We had a working, effective judicial system. Investigations were already done from 2011 to 2016 against Mayor Duterte at that time of the alleged crimes in Davao City. Who investigated this? The Secretary of Justice, Laila de Lima. They were in power. They had done everything they could. So
are you saying that those investigations did not lead to any cases being filed?
Did not lead to any cases filed, and very clearly under the principle of complementarity, pursuant to the Rome Statute itself, and that is provided for under Article 17 of the Rome Statute, that if the state has investigated or prosecuted, then cases in the ICC pertaining to those matter would be inadmissible.
Well, what can you say about the statement of the DOJ, Department of Justice spokesperson, said yesterday, Miko Clavano? He said that the fact that the Philippines cooperated with the ICC and Interpol's request shows that we have a working judicial system. From a lawyer's perspective, do you think that it's kind of contradictory with this principle of complementarity that is one of the basis of ICC's jurisdiction?
I'm really shocked that a statement like that came from a high-ranking official of the Department of Justice. First, he contradicted the statement of of President BBM that the Philippine government will not cooperate, will not do anything about the ICC investigation, etc., that we only have to act on the request of the Interpol. Now, the Undersecretary of Justice said, no, they cooperated. No. Second, is the Department of Justice the competent judicial authority mentioned in Article 59 of the Rome Statute? No. The Department of Justice is not a court. Hindi po ito korte, hindi po ito judicial authority. The only judicial authority here would be the entities under the Supreme Court, from the Supreme Court down to the Municipal Trial Court. That is the meaning of judicial competent authority in the Philippines. Because the Department of Justice is the prosecutorial arm under the Executive Department. It's not under the Judicial Department, and therefore it could not properly act under Article 59 of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. So it was wrong. And the statement of the good Undersecretary, if he said that, then they are part of what I call the large-scale government conspiracy to kidnap Rudy Duterte. Because purely this is kidnapping. If you are going to take a look at circumstances that led to the banishment of PRRD to the Netherlands, from the arrest, detention, and the forcible taking out of Duterte. That is pure and simple kidnapping.
Was he really deprived of his right to counsel? Because when he was detained in Villamor Air Base, from what we understand or
Yes.
know, General Torre was saying he has counsel there. So, meron po ba siyang counsel talaga at that time?
Well, pinaka-importante, na-deprive siya ng kanyang, the most important cardinal right of every person in the Philippines, the right to due process, guaranteed under Section 1 of Article 3 of our Constitution, which states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, and property without due process of law, nor shall anyone be denied of the equal protection of the laws. Concurrent with that, for persons who are accused or charged of any crime, they have the right to counsel, and not just any lawyer, not Attorney Karen or Attorney Lambino can be acting as counsel of the accused. He has the right to choose the counsel whom he believes would be competent enough to defend his rights pursuant to whatever laws that he is charged against. Ito pinag-usapan natin, Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. I can say now that I am not expert in pursuant to all this particular provisions of law.
Very few people have any expertise.
That's why very few
the Rome
Filipino
statute.
lawyers are listed as counsel that can appear in the ICC. And so, knowing the former president, he himself as a lawyer, no, he could have said, no, I do not need a lawyer. I'm a lawyer myself. A.S. Mijaldea is a very, very brilliant lawyer. Attorney Dalgra, who are there, they are also very brilliant lawyers. But they are not the lawyers that PRRD would like to talk to.
They're not as well-versed in the Rome statute.
Maybe they're well-versed.
Sino palagay nyo ang mga pwedeng humarap or merong competence to harap to go to the ICC?
PRRD said that I am waiting for my daughter, meaning Vice President Sara, who is a lawyer, to act as his counsel. Hindi pinapasok. Hindi pinapasok si Atty. Panelo, who I understand that he just arrived also from Hong Kong in the afternoon, and he would like to see the president. And Atty. Panelo would be very competent because he was the presidential legal counsel during the time of PRRD. Hindi rin siya pinapasok. Hindi rin pinapasok si Atty. Silvestre Bello, former Secretary of Justice, former Solicitor General, close to the president. They were buddies since they were in college. Hindi rin pinapasok. No? These are the possible three people of the choice of the president to represent him in these particular instances. So he was deprived of the right to counsel. Hindi yung the right to counsel is any lawyer. Right to a competent counsel. Itinuturo natin ito sa constitutional law, Attorney Karen, and I've been teaching this for 20 years. No? And in series of decisions of the Supreme Court, the right to counsel is the right to a competent counsel.
So given the violations of due process that you allege, what do you think can be the remedies for former President Duterte? You filed a TRO in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
This was denied.
We filed a petition for certiorari and prohibition immediately upon knowing that he was already arrested and detained in the Villamor Air Base, and with a prayer for issuance of a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction. Attorney Torion, who was tasked to file this petition, was able to do so around 3 minutes before 4:30, if I'm not mistaken, of the time. You know, the Supreme Court, 4:30, they are going to close. They're not going to accept any pleading already. But he was able to file it on time, I think 4:27 or 4:25, things like that. No? And then the justices were no longer there. And again, we filed an urgent motion to hear our TRO prayer. No? And we are thankful to the Supreme Court that they had a special raffle. They were able to assign that to a particular justice. And we are thankful that we heard late in the evening, around 9 o'clock, Attorney Torion called me up, asked me that, okay, sabihin sa akin, Panjero, punta tayo sa Supreme Court kasi makakakuha tayo ng TRO.
So yung ba ang basis? Because there was a social media post that came out where you were announcing that you were able to obtain a TRO.
I have to believe Attorney Torion because he is the one who filed. He is the lead lawyer in this particular petition. So I was so happy. Who would not be happy? We were already stressed the whole morning, afternoon, and we were in Villamor waiting for whatever development. And then Attorney Torion, retired General Pasi was with me there, and Philip Salvador was also with me there in the Resource World area. And then Attorney Torion asked us that, let's go to the Supreme Court because we can get the TRO. So we were so happy. I was very, very happy.
Meron
of course.
TRO? Because there are others who are commenting that you should face sanctions for spreading fake news. So what
No,
is
that's
your
not a
comment on
fake
that?
news. It was not a fake news. It was a statement from the lead counsel that we could get the TRO now. So takbo kami sa Supreme Court. We drove to the Supreme Court. Attorney Torion and I and Philip Salvador, magkakaiba kami ng sasakyan. Nagkawalaan pa nga kami. Nakita-kita na lang kami sa Supreme Court. We arrived there something like about 9 o'clock
And then
or
you found
9:30.
out na walang TRO.
So we waited. Attorney Torion was ahead of us by a few minutes. So dinatnan ko na si Attorney Torion doon, nakaupo doon. Sabi niya, oh, ano nangyari? Sabi niya, wala pang lumalabas eh. Wala pang ano. Sabi ko, pero nag-meeting ba talaga yung Supreme Court? Hindi namin alam kung nag-meeting. So we are hoping that they are discussing our motion for the issuance of a TRO. So we waited for maybe an hour in the Supreme Court. No, sabi ko sa kanya, ano, Panyaro, siguro wala. Let's go back to Villamor and let's tell the people there.
But let's go back to the legalities. Based on what laws we have right now, including our laws on violations of humanitarian rights, what would have been the process that should have been followed in enforcing an Interpol request and a warrant of arrest from the ICC?
Remember, Attorney Karen, that in our courses of political law and constitutional law, no, the one that has primacy jurisdiction or the primacy of the Constitution at all times, when there is conflict between an international law or international law principle, okay, and we are talking of how its effects here in the Philippines, always the domestic law prevails. The Constitution or any law will be more primary than an international law like the Rome Statute.
So kailangan sundin yung proseso na yung kilatisin yung order of arrest or the accused would have the opportunity to appear.
Yes, that's right.
And question that order of arrest
before
a competent court.
Despite the fact that we follow the doctrine of incorporation pursuant to the provision again of our Constitution under Article 2, Section 3, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, that the Philippines adopt the generally accepted principles of international law as part of the law of the land. So be it, yes, correct. But when that international law principle or the international law itself, like the Rome Statute, contravenes the provision of the Constitution of the Philippines will prevail. And clearly, yung Rome Statute itself, no, is not contrary to the provision of the Constitution. Kasi sinasabi doon sa Article 59, no, sinasabi dito, no, a state party who has received a request, no, for a provisional arrest. Tingnan mo, nakalagay doon, provisional arrest ang nakalagay sa Article 59, no, should go immediately to the competent authority, judicial authority, to make sure that the rights of the accused who is going to be arrested will be properly observed. No? And that includes what? It is issued by the ICC, meaning to say it's authentic, and the person named in that warrant of arrest is the person to be arrested, and including his right for provisional liberty. Pwede siyang makalaya, temporarily.
So Attorney Sal said hindi rin nagkaroon ng pagkakataon na maligo man lang si former president or magpalit ng damit o magdala ng pampalit ng damit. So would you know the haste in which he was taken into custody and then flown out, do you know who paid for the chartered plane that was used?
Well, in yesterday's conference that I had in another station, no, I was one of the guests, and then followed by DILG Secretary John Vic Rimulya. The same question was asked. Sino ang nagbayad doon sa pag-charter ng eroplano? Inamin niya, Office of the President. I think that is recorded. And for how much, we do not know. Some are speculating that it could be more than 5 million or 7 million. No? Sinong may-ari ng chartered plane? May mga chismis, may mga rumor na sinasabi nila pag-aari ng isang congressman. Pero yung congressman yata, dinay na niya na sa kanya yung eroplano na ginamit. Kung sino man yun. Pero ito ang maliwanag. No? Bakit nagmamadali talaga sila? Meron
Because
namang
based
commercial
on the
flight.
ICC, yes, I think from what we know, if ICC were to enforce an order of arrest, meron daw commercial flights. Doon daw isasakay.
Meron namang commercial flights from Manila going to Europe via wherever, Dubai, Singapore, Tokyo, China. Pwede ka naman makarating sa Europe via commercial flight. Pero bakit? As early as 2:00 pa lang ng hapon, ay talagang pinagpipilitan na nilang isakay sa eroplano si PRRD. One thing is certain, Gusto lang nila talagang matanggal na si PRRD dito sa political equation. Dahil sa kampanyang ito, wherever we go, all over the Philippines, Visayas, Mindanao, and even on Luzon, pag dumating ang isang digong, tatay digong, sa rally or sa meeting na yon, dinadagsa ng mga tao. Hindi namin kailangan maghakot. Basta alam din ang darating ang digong. And we have seen that in the few rallies that we went together, including in Hong Kong. Kaya, yun ang kanilang kinatatakutan siguro dahil gusto nila walang manalo sa amin sa PDP-Laban. That's the reason, one of the primary reason, that's why they have to remove Tatay Digong immediately.
There are reports that 10 others, including Senators Bato de la Rosa and Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, are also being charged or have been charged by the ICC. Are you aware of these cases?
I heard also that there are pending complaints that were filed in the ICC that would be resolved. But ito klarong-klaro sa ating saligang batas. Kahit na dito na lang sa Rome Statute na pinag-uusapan natin. Under the principle of complementarity, if the state itself, like Philippines, cannot investigate or cannot prosecute these cases under its existing legal system, then the ICC is the court of last resort. Nakalagay yan.
Last resort. Yeah.
The court of last resort. Pero hindi. Meron tayong umaandar na wheel of justice dito. Malakas ang ating prosecutorial service. Ito na nga, sinasabi na nga ng undersecretary na, malakas yung ating kwan eh. He is even acting that he is the competent or judicial authority.
But Attorney Raul, I'll ask you as a lawyer, don't you see that also as a predicament? Meaning, the judicial system, if it were functioning, then it would be the government's responsibility to prosecute these cases, which would be the DOJ.
Yes.
So, the Quadcom hearings we've had from other reports after the Quadcom hearings concluded, there were statements that they would recommend the filing of certain cases based on the Quadcom hearings, and former President Duterte also appeared in those hearings. So,
correct,
parang yung bola is in the court of the Philippine government to file those cases. So, to the extent that they can say that kailangan ICC na mag-take jurisdiction, it's the same principle of complementarity that if they say that there are no cases filed here, there's no, or ICC says na walang functioning judicial system because there is no genuine prosecution, then doesn't that point to also this government as not doing anything to prosecute? Parang what I'm saying is, yung ability to withhold the prosecution is what also would give ICC jurisdiction. That's to simplify that statement.
First and foremost, you cannot surrender your sovereignty. So that is already admission. Sinurrender na natin ang Pilipinas at ang karapatan ng taong bayan sa mga banyaga. I-abolish na natin itong bansang ito kung ganun din lamang. At maging ano na lang tayo. Maging ano na lang, vassal state na lang tayo.
Raul, here's my question. So there are some commentaries, even in international news, I've been watching them, and articles as well, where there have been observations by even outsiders that this the ICC arrest came at a time where there's a political feud between two powerful families. So if there is any indication that the ICC's process and proceedings are being used as a political tool,
yes,
or as you call it, a political persecution,
it is.
Would that be taken into account by the ICC in terms of their proceedings or in finding merit in the case?
Well, I hope so. That the ICC would not be very biased, would not be politicized. It will not become a party to a political persecution and political oppression committed by this government against former President Duterte. Because if it's going to be politicized, then it will lose its credibility at all. That's the reason why many countries in the world, including the most powerful ones, don't believe in the ICC. Hindi nga pinapaliwalaan ito ng Amerika eh. Yung Amerika na kaalyado natin, that we are very close, that we believe in what the Americans do, bakit natin papayagan ang Pilipinas na maging sunod-sunuran sa banyaga? Pinaglaban natin itong tinatawag nating kasarinlan, kalayaan natin. Dahil lamang sa politika ngayon, ang isang dating presidenteng naglingkod ng tama ay isusurrender natin ang ating soberenya sa mga banyaga. If this is the situation here in the Philippines, we do not have the right anymore to exist as a sovereign state. We better apply as a state of the United States or maybe a part of another state in Europe if we believe of the European way of life and exercise of government. Kaya ito ang sinasabi ko, Karen, no? Maliwanag itong Rome Institute na if there is investigation being conducted or already conducted, then the case would not be admissible anymore in the International Criminal Court. I mentioned already the investigation conducted by De Lima when she was the Secretary of Justice from 2011 to 2016. They were in power. So there was investigation. So wala na yung mga kaso na yun na sinasabi na, I think 19 cases yung sinasabi of drug use and thieves. Kasama ba sa crimes against humanity? Yung crimes against thieves, no? Second, yung crimes committed from 2016 to 2019. Were there investigation conducted by the government? There was very recently, as you mentioned, yung Senate investigation under Senator Risa Ontiveros or under Coco Pimentel, yata siyang chair yata noon, ng special committee. So there was investigation by the Philippine government and then followed by the investigation of the so-called Quadcom. So there was investigation that happened in the Philippines. Ergo, it cannot admit anymore, the ICC should not admit any more cases pertaining to those mentioned in the charge that was brought in 2017. Wala nang jurisdiction dito ang ICC, assuming that the Rome Institute would still be applied here in the Philippines.
And Attorney Raul, last question. You are an aspirant under the PDP-Laban Senatorial slate. And like you said, dati pag nag-iikot kayo, talagang pumupunta yung mga crowds. Pag nalaman nilang dadating si Tatay Digong, paano ngayon na wala po si Tatay Digong, nasa Hague siya? Are you still going to continue your rounds, PDP-Laban?
Yes. The more that we become energetic, the more that we work hard. To be frank with you, for the last 3 nights, siguro mga 4 hours pa lang yung tulog ko. Because we really have to answer, we really have to tell our people na hindi pa tayo natatalo dito kahit wala na si Tatay Digong dito. Physically, he may not be around, but all the legacies, lahat ng kaisipan kayon, alam ng Pilipino kung gaano kamahal ni Tatay Digong ang mga Pilipino. Kaya tuloy-tuloy lang yung aming ginagawa ngayon. First, sabihin ko, I never planned or dreamed of running for senator. But it was Tatay Digong who told me, September 24 through Executive Secretary Medialdea, sabi niya, Raul, gusto ni Mayor, kasama ka sa line-up ng PDP. Sabi ko, boss, hindi ako artista. Hindi ako entertainer. I am not a member of the media. Hindi ako kilala ng mga tao. Sabi niya, maniwala ka. Sinabi ni Mayor, mananalo ka. So, I consulted my family. Walang may gusto na tumakbo ako rito. But, you know, the words of Mayor Digong, PRRD, is so valuable to me na, okay, isama niyo ako dyan. And I only started campaigning February 11. From October 8 to February 10, wala, hindi ako lumabas o nagkabit ng kung anumang poster dyan. Wala. Ang makikita nyo sa social media account ko, before February 11, ang nakalagay doon, panibaka, kalabaw, gansa. Yun ang aking ginagawa. Kasi isa na lamang po akong ordinaryong magsasaka ngayon. Hindi na po ako yung full-time na abogado. So, that's how I wanted to come out as a candidate in this election. But starting February 11 until now, I am a candidate for the Senate, number 34, under PDP-Laban.
Thank you so much, Attorney Raul Lambino, and good luck in the 2025 elections.
Thank you, Attorney Karen. Thank you. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat, mga minamahal na kababayan. Huwag niyo pong kalilimutan, magdasal po tayo. Yung pagmamahal natin kay Tatay Digong, pagmamahal natin sa bansang Pilipinas at sa bawat Pilipino. Mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you.